with anything. Geez, you pulled one prank with Halloween candy a few years ago and you never hear the end of it. Anyway, so All Hallows Eve is upon us again, so I guess it's time for us at TV Trash to look at another Halloween special. And who else could we count on to make a Halloween special than someone who taught us life lessons through rhyming verbal nonsense? Many of us remember the animated specials based off of Dr. Seuss's most beloved books, but not all of the Seuss animated shows were directly based off of previously written books. A number of them were originally created specifically for animation. And one of those such specials was Halloween is Grinch Night. I remember when I was a kid and all those specials were packaged on VHS, and this was the one such show that seemed to be separate without a second show included on its tape. Almost like it had no other friends in the Dr. Seuss collection. Probably should have seen that as the foreshadowing it truly was. Let's take a look at Halloween is Grinch Night. We open on this blast of color that kind of looks like a Looney Tunes cartoon from the 70s, and I'll get to that in a moment, where we see this Amish-looking family of Josiah, Mariah, and their grandson Euchariah. Ha! And don't worry if you don't remember those names, they keep reminding you throughout the first act.
Until finally Euchariah said,
Grandpa Josiah?
and Grandpa Josiah said, yes, Euchariah? And Euchariah said,
anyway, they sense a dark presence is about to befall the town as it does every year.
old Josiah happened to sniff. And he whispered to his wife, Mariah, will you also take a whiff? And Josiah and Mariah double sniffed. And they said,
I wonder if...
Huh, who knew that Whoville was downwind of New Jersey?
They knew that the sour, sweet wind was coming back, and what the sour, sweet wind would do.
So the coming of autumn leads everyone in Whoville to just shut everything down. Big deal! They do that in every small Texas town on Friday nights that time of year. It's called high school football season.
I suggest we stay indoors tonight. I suggest we lock ourselves in tight. Tonight, you know, won't go quite right. You can tell by the smell of the wind. It sounds like another one's coming. Another Grinch night might commence. I wouldn't go out on a night like this for $1.50.
Aim high, dude! So after Josiah's song about how scared and frugal he is, we move along to the Grinch himself, who is no longer voiced by Boris Karloff, as he plans something for the Who's involving.
Max, go bring the paraphernalia wagon.
Oh good God, not paraphernalia! Gewgaws and brickabacks, impediments! Who's it and what's it? When will it end?
Hurry up, Max. I'm raring to go. I'm going to be the guest of honor at exclusive Grinch Night Ball. Gonna be the only dancer in the Whoville Town Hall. I might enter the ball quite small, or I might go in quite tall. But I assure you nobody is gonna dance with me at all when I enter front and center at the exclusive Grinch Night Ball.
Because nothing induces fear and terror like a Broadway-style song and dance number. Then again, I've seen the producer's remake, so... Okay, so we're 7 minutes into this thing, and if you're like me, you just get the feeling that something is off here compared to a lot of the other Dr. Seuss specials. At first I thought it was that the Who's were not drawn right, but upon comparing them to the first cartoon, they admittedly weren't that different. But even still, there's just a feeling that this is less of a Dr. Seuss show. A lot of that may have to do with the production. The original How the Grinch Stole Christmas cartoon was produced by MGM and directed by Chuck Jones, who had been working with MGM ever since Warner Brothers fired him for moonlighting in 1962. Of course, by the end of the 60s, most of the major studios had closed up their animation departments and left animated TV in the hands of independent studios, like the one opened by two other former Warner employees, Fritz Freeling and David DePatie, who began producing the Dr. Seuss cartoons by the 70s. And if you don't remember much about Fritz Freeling and David DePatie's independent endeavors, this'll jog your memory. Now that's damn scary, at least the Looney Tunes fans. Okay, for what it's worth, not all of DePatie Freeling's work has been shunned over the years. They produced the original Pink Panther cartoons, and their previous ventures with Dr. Seuss were the Cat in the Hat animated special, the Lorax, Dr. Seuss on the Loose, and even the first original animated show, the Hoober Bloob Highway. But it seems that by the late 70s, when this special came out, the need to cut corners and produce on the cheap was getting to everyone. And that not only reflects in the animation, but the dialogue as well. It feels like everyone is trying to speak like Dr. Seuss characters, but the rhythm, the beats, the upbeat tempo we associate with Seuss's words, they're just not here for the most part.
Grandpa, we've stood and we've stood, and stooding just stooding produces no good. The least we could do is find out without doubt whether or not the Grinch is coming out. And so I suggest we don't stood here like sticks. Call the Grinch Alarm Center. Dial area code 519006.
Anyway, having hitched up Max to the paraphernalia wagon, the Grinch thus begins the longest downhill path in history. Jeez, didn't take me this long going up and down Manannan's Mountain in King's Quest III.
How many times have I said and said? How many times have I said in my head, what am I doing here? Why am I the slave of this Grinchy old crock?
This is supposed to be a scary cartoon, right? So far, this special seems to be trying to tug at every emotion possible except fear. This isn't making me want to scream in terror, it's making me think this scene should be accompanied by Sarah McLachlan. This also brings up another big question. Just how does this story relate to the original Grinch tale? This special was released in 1977, 11 years after the original debut of the animated Grinch Stole Christmas, and 20 years after the book was originally published. And it wouldn't make sense for this new story to take place before the original, because in the first story, it was almost like the Who's were not even aware of the Grinch's existence until the end. No, I am not going with any retcons to that story. So, what happened in between now and then that the Grinch went back to his crotchety old ways and now likes to regularly terrorize the Who's every time that sour, sweet wind comes blowing in? And yes, these were questions I had when I first watched this as a kid, so I don't buy the argument that the audience wouldn't think about these things. And the one great thing about Dr. Seuss was he never insulted the intelligence of his young audience. 9 years after this special aired, he published a book that was a parable for the Cold War arms race. But this? So far, it almost feels like, what if a Dr. Seuss special was made by the Asylum?
You know something, Grandpa Josiah?
Do I know what, Euchariah?
I gotta go to the euphemism.
The euphemism?
Was that supposed to be an attempt at a joke? They don't want to say bathroom on a kid's cartoon, but they can't come up with a clever euphemism for bathroom, so they just call it a euphemism? I know 70s cartoons were the epitome of mailing it in, but this one's even using outdated postage.
I wouldn't go out on a night like this for $66,600,000 and an extra 66 cents.
Well, I don't think he has to worry about going to the euphemism now. And just like that, Euchariah getting blown all the way out into the woods somehow gets him lost along Mount Crumpet. where the inevitable confrontation with the Grinch takes place.
Am I the Grinch? Ha! I'll show him. Oomka pod pa, pom pom pa, oomka potty pa pa, oomka potty oompa, oomka lunka, ibzin troika, hold him out, pom tusk.
Huh, he's not so scary. Grandpa Josiah used to tell me Grinches eat kids. I think he used it to scare me into keeping my room clean. But Euchariah decides it's up to him to try and stop the Grinch from doing whatever he's going to do. So that leads to...
And what does the rather small Who want this time?
Will you please scare me some more, sir? I sort of like it.
And I actually give the Grinch credit for saying the kid's not worth it and passing him on at first, rather than just squashing him like flowers. Again, why is he portrayed as being so scary to the Who's? But Euchariah is ever persistent, so the Grinch finally gives in.
Put those glasses on and get up here.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Oh no, this is not getting creepy in any way whatsoever. And thus we now get the most what the F scene in the history of animation since Dumbo saw Pink Elephant. Well, I guess I asked for that, what with all my criticism of what was lacking in the first act. But Euchariah's plan works because it was all his ploy to delay the Grinch until the sour, sweet wind stopped blowing, because now the Grinch can't come down to Whoville.
Well, I'll be Grinched.
Wait, what? You're just gonna give up like that just because of a little wind? Show some damn backbone! Real Grinches don't quit! Did your ancestor Grinches quit when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Yeah, I suck at motivating, don't I? And then Max just up and leaves the Grinch to go with Euchariah, and the Grinch just takes it. Man, I'll just get a cat next time. The media always portrays them as being really evil.
But that wind will be coming back someday. I'll be coming back someday.
I'll get you next time, Whoville. Next time. And with that, it all ends with...
The nasty old sour sweet wind has blown away. All the Greek growlings growled itself away. Gone is the Grinch up the mountain far away. Hey, gone is the Grinch, that Grinch has gone away. Sing hallelujah, wind has blown away. Sing hallelujah, sing tra-la-booty-ay. Sing hoo-da-da-dooty-ay, up the mountain far away. Sing hallelujah, Grinch has gone away.
Yeah, this is the dumbest Halloween special I've ever seen in my life. There's nothing really scary here until the third act, and even then it's more disturbing scary than horror scary. On top of that, the dialogue is extremely repetitive and not close to as catchy as Seuss's more classic writing, and it's impossible to see where this special connects to the original story. In fact, it's impossible to match up any of the Grinch cartoons because the third special, The Grinch's The Cat in the Hat, had Max back with the Grinch for no explanation. It's almost like everything makes more sense if this special is ignored altogether. To their credit, the Seuss specials did improve into the 80s, sticking with DePatie Freeling, even as the studio was eventually bought up by Marvel, so this is one of the few blemishes on Dr. Seuss's record. But I get the feeling the guys at DePatie Freeling were just constantly begging Seuss to make a Halloween special, and he threw this thing together just to get them to shut up. Heck, I've probably seen scarier stuff among what the women will wear this time of year trying to get laid. And speaking of costumes, what's the current tally so far, guys? We've had 55 kids dressed up as Kylo Ren and 45 dressed up as Harley Quinn. My money's still on Harley winning. She's gonna make a comeback before this night is over, trust me. Happy All Hallows Eve from TV Trash.